or plurilingual competence with different degrees of proficiency. Content subjects and language are inextricably linked. Learners cannot develop academic knowledge and skills without access to the language in which that knowledge is embedded, discussed, constructed, or evaluated. Nor can they acquire academic language skills in a context devoid of academic content. So the academic content is very important to focus on. Content subject classes can provide rich opportunities for language development. This is very important. The language development, because we are in the process, not only for the target language, but also for our mother tongue. We are always learning. In our life, we learn how to communicate in our own mother tongue. And this is a process that never ends. And the same thing happens to the target language. Learning content subjects through a target language or language tool can focus attention and raise motivation. See, this is very important. I always say that motivation is something that we cannot work without, because the motivation is your increased interests to participate in something. Learning one language can help learn another language. This is important. We need not only to focus on the target language, the language two, we need to focus on our language one, as I said before, on the process of learning. So this is important to take into account that learning one language can help learn another language. According to the research by Genesi in 2012, in the pages 18 to 20, into bilingual education for learners who are members of the majority language and culture group of the larger national community, indicates that learners who are learning subjects through the language tool can, in well-implemented programs, attain the same levels of academic achievement and the same levels of proficiency in their first language, and similar students being educated entirely in the first language develop the same appreciation and understanding of the first language culture as students on language one programs, and can develop greater understanding of the language two culture. Attain very advanced levels of functional proficiency in language two. Functional proficiency, this is very, very important to be highlighted. Now, what are the benefits of bilingual education? We can say that bilingual education enables learners to develop their language one alongside language two or global language such as English. We can also refer that there is a growing body of evidence, according to May's 2012, suggesting that there are potential benefits to individuals, schools, and societies in being bilingual. For example, increased mental flexibility. Have you heard about that? Mental flexibility? Or is today the first time you hear that? Improved intercultural skills, definitely, because through another language learning, you learn another culture or other cultures. Increase opportunities for global exchange and trade. Wow, this is important. And we have talked about globalization for many years. So global exchange and trade is part of us now. Challenges. We always find challenges when we apply programs. And this bilingual education is not an exception that we will find challenges. But what are the ones that we're going to find? People might feel anxious about an innovation such as bilingual education and will have a lot of questions. For example, whether all learners will have sufficient language 2 proficiency to cope. Some people see bilingual education as requiring proficiency in the language 2, whereas others see bilingual education as developing proficiency in the language 2. This is linked to age at when bilingual education starts. Each context is different, and so it can be difficult deciding, for example, whether bilingual education will be for the whole school or for a bilingual stream. What age to start bilingual education, as there are pros and cons on an early start and a later start. We can also say that students learning through and language 2 need to be systematically supported over a period of 5 to 10 years in developing proficiency in the use of academic language. See the work of Jean Cummings on academic and social language. I really recommend him to read about Jean Cummings. Then, bilingual education is a complex, undertaken, and so requires careful leadership. There is another powerful word here, leadership. Leadership is present in all that we do. We need it. For example, researching bilingual education. We need to know the most we can about bilingual education. This is a subject matter for further investigation. Designing an appropriate model and policy. Planning and managing change. Working with stakeholders. Providing learning materials in different languages. Finding, training, and keeping teachers. Monitoring and evaluation. How can schools support bilingual learners? This is a very strong question. So, how? A language policy can outline how to support bilingual learners. Every school will have its own language profile. So it is important that this is reflected in a policy that recognizes the language needs of different groups of learners and teachers. It can consider the solution to questions, including how will English as a second language be supported? How will learners be encouraged to develop their first language? A long-term training strategy can enable local teachers for whom English is an L2 to build up their proficiency in English, to enable them to deliver lessons in English. This strategy could also include training on pedagogy, how to teach and support bilingual learners, teachers who have English as mother tongue should also be considered for such training, as it cannot be assumed that they know how to do this, of course, because you can have a teacher of a native speaker in the language two for the bilingual learners, but for these teachers, English is their mother tongue. So also, we also need training. Content and language integrated learning, CLIL, is one way to support bilingual learners who have learning through an L2 and who need to learn the academic language to achieve in subjects. CLIL has a dual-focused teaching approach in which bilingual learners learn both content and language. This is very important. I always say, if you want to apply bilingual education, we also need to be trained in this content and language integrated learning. There is a certificate of this. There is a very complete program developed by Cambridge University Assessment. CLIL can also be used to make a foreign language program more motivating by teaching real content. Example, history through the language. Some teachers make only minimal use of the language one in order to immerse bilingual learners in language two. Other teachers sometimes use translation techniques where learners may read, listen, watch in one language and discuss, write in another language. How about the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages? It's used by some schools and universities to refer to different levels of foreign language proficiency. Another time that we mentioned this powerful word, proficiency. This makes it easy to see the level of different curricula, materials, and qualifications sent to see how learners or teachers are progressing from one level to another. However, not all foreign language qualifications are mapped to the Common European Framework of Reference. Then, what is a bilingual education curriculum model useful? Why? I can tell you something. Because for bilingual schools to plan which subjects will be taught and learned through which language and over how much time it's important in the plan. And we also have, for example, some schools who have been teaching through the L1 and decide to become bilingual schools, begin teaching through the language two in a small way by reaching one module or project through this target language. Or teach one or two content subjects through L2 over several years. Teach a substantial part of the curriculum through the language two over several years. So this is important. Substantial parts of the curriculum through the language two over several years. So we need to pilot the program, to monitor the program, to improve the program that we apply in schools. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I'm open and ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ruben. Okay. Now, please, if audience have any question to Mr. Ruben, please. If there is no question,
Yes, there is
We
one,
can
Diana.
conclude that from this.
Diana has just raised her hand. I can see
Diana.
her, Diana.
Oh, okay. Please, Miss Yana.
Please turn on your microphone, Diana.
Yana.
Yes, already, yes. Hello, Mr. Rubens.
Hello, good to see you.
I'm really, yes. It's nice to see you and happy to hear about your experience. I'm really, really proud of you. Well, I'm so happy to listening, to hear about the bilinguals. Here's about the language, or we can use the second language, that's about the English. We have the mother tongues like Bahasa Indonesia, and in my village we use a very local language like names Bahasa Anakalang, like makan, angu, eat in English, or maybe let's we go together. Mari kita pergi bersama. That is the mother language of Indonesia. Medaya kapamarengu in our local language. Okay, because I know that I must learning about the most language in over the world. I'm happy to hear about your sharings. Well, we are talking about the language or linguist in language in English, linguist in Spanish or Portuguese or Brazil language. Okay. In this context, you're telling about the language. Well, in my regions, when we are teaching, last time I'm teaching, okay, I'm teaching at the public school. I'm using some language at the classroom. First, I'm using the English, and then I use Bahasa Indonesia. I start to my local language, from local language to Bahasa Indonesian and to English. So that is my way how to teaching of the students around. At the class also, because some of the students at the schools, even the private class of me, they never understand if I'm teaching them all in English, everything in English. They will happy if I'm teaching them by this another language, from English to Bahasa Indonesia, from Bahasa Indonesia to my local language. And you have a very inspiring, you were assume me, you were touching my imagines how to do teaching to the students, to teaching to the another peoples about the English. So I'm happy. My question is, what do you what I must have to do when I'm teaching by the another language? What I must do to assume them to
That's a very nice introduction to your question, because you talked about bilingualism in a very good way, as you mentioned that there are other languages, not only the ones that you speak as official language in your country. You have other regions, other towns that they speak other languages, and you are the one who is going to teach them in your official language. And that is another kind of bilingualism. That is actually is one thing, is bilingualism is to approach to the students in a different language. Here in Peru, for example, there are regions, they do not speak the official language, which is Spanish here. So the first thing is the motivation to the teacher to go and teach there. Because, for example, there are very poor towns. The conditions are terrible. So the ones who sometimes risks themselves, even they have, it is incredible, but some teachers have to walk for 2 hours to reach the school every day. So imagine the students. But they have high motivation to learn. How to get the approach to learning a different language. The thing is, and I'm going to answer with this, the question of Mary saying that she typed on the chat box is, how does bilingualism affect learning? Of course, affect learning, because the thing is that how motivated your students might be in being approached in another language. What do you give them to highlight their interest, to communicate in another language, to say history in English, for example, or in another language? Is how you tell them that it is going to work for them in their future, that it is important for them to learn that. That is the magic word, important. Even you as teachers, if you don't consider something important, what do? You discard it. And so the students. So let's use our empathy. Let's be empathetic. Remember that time that you were students. And follow my policy. My policy is be the teacher that you have always wanted to have as a student. And it works.
Thank you.
I have applied it for 30-something years, and it works in bilingualism and in whatever matter you approached.
Thousand thanks. I'm really happy to meet you this afternoon, Professors Ruben Garcia. You are so amazing. You are so talented professors.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. Sorry, so from the presentation, we can conclude that a bilingual learner is someone that using mother tongue in their daily life, and then they are using another language, like when mentioned the language is maybe like English or something, when they are learned at school. And then from this we know that from the presentation also we can know about you can know that increase mental flexibility, improve intercultural skills, increase opportunity for global exchange and trade. And then to support our students to improve their English skills is we have to motivate them about using foreign language for their daily life. Thank you. Is Miss Christmas?
Thank you, Miss Pinka. These sessions have provide more understanding about children education supported by a second language will further explore the child abilities. So this is really amazing season. Once again, thank you, Mr. Ruben Garcia. And now we are continuing to the next session. It will be guided by Miss Ira Junita. So please, Miss Ira Junita.
Thank you, Miss Christmas. Now, the next presenter is Miss Laura Stanciu. Please, Miss Laura, it's time for you to present your topic.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Stanciu, and I am from Romania. And let me share my presentation. Are the slides moving? Could you confirm that the slides are moving?
Once the slides are moving.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the implementation of the bilingual system. Why do we need a bilingual system? Why do we need to learn more than one language? Because the knowledge of languages is the doorway to wisdom. With languages, you are home everywhere. And language is not only learning different words for the same things, but learning about other ways to think about things. So these are just some of the reasons that we should motivate our students to learn a second language or more than one language. Bilingual education involves teaching academic content in two languages, in a native and secondary language with varying amounts of each language used in accordance with the program model. Bilingual education refers to the utilization of two languages as means of instructions for the students and considered part of or the entire school curriculum as distinct from simply teaching as a second language as a subject. For all students, bilingual learning can mean higher cognitive function, better grades, increased language proficiency, and higher graduation rates and college enrollment. Acquiring a language is an active skill, and students benefit from active classroom participation. Language marginalized students tend to benefit the most from dual language initiatives. Bilingual classrooms promote equity in education and help narrow the achievement gap between native English speakers and English learners. There are many cognitive benefits of a bilingual education. Bilingual education can strengthen the executive function of the brain. In fact, research shows that because bilingual students are able to use two languages at the same time, switching consistently, it develops skills for functions such as inhibition, switching attention, and working memory. As such, students who are being educated bilingually often perform better on tasks which require multitasking, decision-making, and problem-solving, even though they have nothing to do with the language. So learning two languages helps the brain become stronger and helps with much more than just acquiring words. One of the major benefits of bilingual education is that students who are not only raised to be bilingual, but also to be biliterate, to have the ability to read and write in two different languages. And this can give the child more choices when it comes to choosing further education. They will be free to choose which university they want to apply for, in which country, depending on the languages they speak. It will be easier for them to participate in semesters abroad or exchange programs, where they can study in another country and become immersed in the culture of the second language. A bilingual education broadens career opportunities. Being fluent in an extra language can make a candidate stand out among prospective employers. It can also open the doors to extra opportunities that those without these skills may miss out on. So in today's growing global economy, many international companies are increasingly searching for employees who are bilingual. Those with a bilingual education have the advantage. Candidates who are educated bilingually stand out from other potential employees, especially if it is a language which is widely spoken. Children with a bilingual education are more adaptable. Language isn't just about learning sets of words and grammar. It is also about learning about another culture, about another way of life. The advantage of bilingual education gives children a broader outlook and brings them closer to different races and nationalities. In a world that is constantly changing, communication is becoming increasingly important. Children who are able to communicate with a variety of cultures are the ones that will have the more advantages in life. And I really like this quote: language is the roadmap of a culture. It tells you where its people come from and where they are going. A bilingual education creates more cultural opportunities. A major advantage of attending a bilingual school is that you get to meet with people from different backgrounds. Learning about other culture is important for children and helps them to understand the world around them. It helps them to grow up more open-minded and accept differences, accept others the way they are. Learning a foreign language and the culture that goes with it is one of the most useful things we can do to broaden the empathy and imaginative sympathy and cultural outlook of children. What we need to do as educators is to motivate and encourage students to learn languages, because a different language is a different vision of life. One way to encourage them to use the language is to give them a reason for using that language. Students need to be motivated, need to know why they are using that language, why they need to learn. So one way is to give them real life situations, give them a reason, tell them the situations they will need to use that particular language. One way is total immersion. One of the best ways to teach a language is to immerse students in the target words, expressions, and experiences as often as possible. For example, take a real life situation such as going to the supermarket and make it happen in the classroom. Encourage students to engage in experiences of their own while using the language. If there are, for example, companies which speak in that particular language, for example, if there are English companies, ask them if they are older to try to get in touch with those people, try to practice the language with native speakers, or try to create their own connections. One of these possibilities is letter or email exchange. For example, I tried to find people from all over the world to have this kind of exchange with my students in order to prompt them to use the language, to see how native speakers use their language and to respond. And it's also a fun activity that really engages them. Role play is one of the most commonly used exercises to practice the language. Give the students a situation and ask them to act out based on that topic. For example, we had a job interview, and it could be about anything in the world. They just need to use their imagination. The idea is to bring arguments to convince that the potential employer in the game to hire them based on their own description of themselves. We also had a language learning game called Virtual Company. They had to think about a company, what would be the thing that the company produces, and starting from this, they had to build everything, all the steps, including the managing team and the final products. This took a while, but it prompted the students to use the language in a real situation. And of course, one way to encourage students is to use the internet and social media, because we know that students nowadays spend a lot of time on the internet, and this could also be beneficial for the English class. So ask them whenever they have a topic to research to use everything they know in order to complete that task. in order to make learning effective, we need to actively involve the students in all the stages of the lesson. And of course, there has been much talk about modern methodologies, for example, the flipped classroom, during which students absorb information on their own time, and they used in-class time for hands-on learning and problem solving. The flipped classroom prioritizes face-to-face learning activities in order to boost students' engagement, and it helps them move at their own pace, and it can give them valuable experiences. Kinesthetic learning or tactile learning is the type of learning which relies on hands-on demonstrations. Learners absorb the information best when it's presented through movement, and they discover it by practical demonstrations. Student-centered learning allows the student to discover at his or her own pace, and to discover why learning is important for him. Inquiry-based learning allows the teacher to motivate students to go beyond mere curiosity, to move into critical thinking and understanding, and it encourages them to ask questions. And of course, personalized learning gives the teacher the chance to adapt learning to each individual. And of course, we have the classical, the classical way of teaching with presentation, practice, production, which is used in many schools. So we should try to involve students in each of those steps. The presentation, practice, production, or engage, study, activate is probably the most commonly used lesson structure still used in teaching English. And only teachers are taught how to use this. And most grammar books structure their chapters in ways which are similar or the same as this structure. So both teachers and students get a lot of exposure to this method. So there is no doubt that in order for this to be effective and to produce learning from the student, the teacher's role is to make the most of it while involving the students at every stage, and making sure the learning objective of each exercise is reached in a way which makes the students feel motivated and confident to use the language. For example, the presentation doesn't have to be centered on the teacher. Always try to introduce the topic in a context or situation that prompts the students to use their own ideas in a creative way. Try, instead of giving them the information from the beginning, instead try to elicit the information from them. For the example, the topic could be introduced by a story, by a joke, by playing a video or showing comics, by showing newspaper cuttings, or even cinema tickets, any material that might generate ideas related to the topic. And as I've said, instead of just giving the students the specific structure or topic they have to study, elicit from them, make them feel that they are important for the lesson. Their contribution matters to the teaching and learning process. This way, the focus shifts from let's see if you can solve this, let's see if you understood this grammatical structure, for example, to let's Let's see if you have the necessary knowledge to be creative. Usually the students perceive the teaching process like this. If I give this answer, it will be marked as correct. And I will be satisfied that I have achieved the target of the exercise and of the lesson. Or if I give the wrong answer, it will be marked as such. So the focus shifts from, let's see if you have the necessary knowledge to let's be creative. And there is less pressure on the student. We should use collaborative tasks where learners have to use the target language in order to complete successfully the exercises. And we should use meta-learning strategies so that students can learn how to learn. And of course, one way of motivating students to learn is to make learning fun. Games are probably the best way of doing that, because research shows that using games in teaching can help increase student participation. It fosters social and emotional learning and motivates students to take risks. One study of the popular multiple choice quiz game Kahoot found that it improves students' attitudes towards learning, and it boosted their academic scores. In addition, studies have found that virtual games can improve focus and attention for students with ADHD and help students with dyslexia improve spatial and temporal attention, which can translate into improved reading. But games aren't substitutes for other forms of learning. Like any educational tool, they need to be well planned, they need to be integrated only when they're relevant to the learning objectives. We need to give students choices. Students don't get lots of choices in their daily routine, either at school or at home. And sometimes all they want is to have something to say. When students have the power to choose, it helps them become more engaged and buy into what happens next. Try letting them pick the activities that go along with your lesson, or what homework assignment they will work on that night. Giving learners choices will make lessons more fun, all the while instilling them with decision-making skills. Teachers need to be open to creativity. Be open to your students' creativity. Give your class the freedom to modify assignments and projects as long as they run the changes by you first. You may find that their ideas give a unique twist to a lesson. Plus, when students come up with something on their own, it's more meaningful to them, and they can develop confidence in their decision-making skills. And always encourage and motivate students by focusing on their strong points. In my class, I use a lot of communication games, because when students are allowed to function outside the confines of conventional classroom communication, features of everyday language use, such as humor and language play, may appear, which together with other forms of unplanned language use, require quick decisions and the activation of linguistic and metalinguistic skills. Ludic language use can broaden the range of permitted interactional patterns within the classroom and may result in role reversals. Such playful talk can also generate rich language use and better learner engagement, as well as increased metalinguistic awareness among students. Language play facilitates language learning and improves learners' proficiency. For example, this is a fun game where students give each other instructions to reach a certain point. This requires a lot of trust and a lot of communication. Other games that can be used are, of course, board games. You can take any grammar problem, any topic, and just turn it into a board game. For example, here there are some on, there's a board game on food and another one on verbs. And students like these games a lot because It gives them a healthy competition, and it motivates them to do something fun while learning. Of course, there are the same idea can be applied in a form of race or debate games, such as who gets to remain on the island, who gets to stay in the hot air balloon. That's a fun game that I play during classes. Students imagine that they are personalities from history, and they have to give reasons why they should be chosen to remain in the hot air balloon, which gives the name of the game. Negotiation games, such as the board games, where they have to exchange different things in order to win the game. Language games and debate games, and of course online games. There are nowadays a lot of games which are available online and students can play, which can make learning a lot more fun. And one of the language games I also wanted to tell you about is how to make pancakes. So take any action, any activity, no matter how mundane it is, and try to make it sound as interesting as possible. Challenge the students to find ways of turning a simple thing into something complicated. For example, in order to make pancakes, you need honey. And so start the process by keeping bees and collecting the honey. So make everything, every exercise in the lesson, something that engages the student. And of course, there are songs, real life stories, drama and role play, videos which can be stopped and the students can be asked what happens next in the video. Grammar auctions, where students can choose to bet a certain number of points if they can solve an exercise correctly. Video game reviews, exercises with guessing the words based on a definition given by the other students. Games of the type Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or just build your own world when connecting English to other subjects. For example, a time in history requires the student to build or to think of an object which belonged to that time. And of course, using realia, using the objects around, for example, picking a number of random objects and asking the students to build a story based on those objects. Try to, as a teacher, try to use all the skills: listening, writing, speaking, reading, and the last stage, making homework interesting. There are many exercises which can be given as homework, and some of them would be keeping a diary, exploring nature, and describing what can be experienced with all the senses. Projects, arts and crafts. So always encourage students, if they have a certain talent, to use it in order to increase their learning. And of course, digital and computer activities such as Minecraft, which is very popular among students. So remember, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. I really believe that the words of Nelson Mandela are right. So that is why we really need to motivate and to encourage our students to learn a second language. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Miss Laura Stanciu.
And for the conclusion of the explanation, with the language you are at home anywhere. Also, I very excited for this sentences, Miss. And next, motivate the student to learn the different language. And there are some cognitive benefit of bilingual education. The first one is our brain can be stronger because learn the other language. Next, how to make learning fun. I think that make games and give the student choice and open their creativity can make the learning fun. Thank you for Miss Laura, and I give back to our host, Miss Christmas.
Okay, thank you, Miss Ira Junita. This session is very enlightening how bilingual class accommodates children to face is such a great sharing, yeah. So thank you once again, Miss Laura Stancia. And now we are going to the next session. It will be guided by Miss Vinca Maria. So please, Miss Vinca Maria.
Okay, thank you for Miss Christmas. Now, next to our speaker, Mr. Dariel David from Philippines. Mr. David?
Yes, thank you so much for our moderator. So, allow me to present my screen, if you don't mind, my dear moderator, Madam Vinca Maria. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to our participants in this today's international webinar, conducted, of course, by the Indonesian government or Indonesian country, headed, of course, by Sir Rudi Sinulingga. Okay, so it is my opportunity to share in the virtual platform the assigned or the given topic to me. So before anything else, allow me to greet one and all. Hello to everyone, and hi, and how are you? In Indonesia, it's apa kabar? How are you? Okay, so I'm from the Philippines. I'm Mr. Dariel, the master teacher from Angeles City National High School. So this is actually the focus of my discussion, or the discussion structure in this time given to me. So I'm going to have this discussion about what is bilingualism. Second, the benefits of bilingualism. The third one, the pros and cons, or the advantages and disadvantages of bilingualism and the different types of bilingualism. And I wanted to share, of course, since I'm from the Philippines, I wanted to share a little bit about the bilingualism in the Philippine perspective. Okay, so as we can see in the screen, of course, if we are going to talk about bilingualism, okay, there are different types of language. Of course, we know for a fact that English is the international language being used, but of course, we from different countries all over the globe, we have our native language or our mother tongue. But of course, having the English as the second language is a crucial, or it's pivotal for our greater success as a student, and of course as a teacher. Okay, bilingual learning, why it is considered a must in today's world? So basically, of course, if we are equipped with bilingual communication or bilingual language, of course, the tendency we could be able to communicate globally and of course competitively. Okay, so of course we have different dialects or we have different languages all over the world, but then again, if we are equipped with the English language or our second language, which is English, we might be able, of course, to communicate properly. Next. Okay, so the definition, I have here a short definition of what bilingualism is. So I extracted the definition from Merriam-Webster. So the first one, of course, is the ability to speak two languages. Okay, take note of it. The ability to speak two languages. Of course, the first one would be our mother tongue or our native language. So in our case, our native language or our first language is Filipino, and of course, the second one is the English. Next, the frequent use as by community of two languages. Okay, so next, the political or the institutional recognition of two languages. Okay, so of course, with the political will of the government official in our respective country, they could actually pass a law that would actually recognize two languages. Of course, the second one, of course, is the language that we are that we speak, which is the international language, which is English. In our case, of course, it was signed, of course, one of our previous leader in our country, which is no less than the president of the former president of the Philippines, Madam Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Okay, moving on. Okay, actually, this was already presented and discussed by my fellow colleagues who exactly presented and made a discussion regarding the benefits of bilingualism. However, for the point of sharing and clarification, okay, one of the benefits of bilingualism is students' achievement. We all know for a fact that we as a teachers, okay, one of our primary purpose, of course, when we are teaching our learners or our students, is to improve their achievement. Okay, so basically, the use of the mother tongue or our native language plays a vital role in students' learning. That is true. It develops the student personal and functional literacy skills that enable the students to transfer the second language. So basically, there is what we call the transfer of understanding or comprehension when we use bilingual or bilingualism. Okay, the message of both local and international study is quite clear that the learners should not use in monolingual classroom. So there is a study about it. Okay, despite this growing body of research showing the benefits of maintenance and bilingual programs, in our case, okay, I wanted to share, the Department of Education, or in your case, we have the Ministry of Education, issued an executive order number 210 or 210, declaring English to be the medium of instruction as a second language. So basically, in our case, in our department or the Department of Education where I belong, where I part of the public school teacher, okay, we use basically, of course, English as the medium of instruction. Moving on. Another benefit is the engagement of to learning. Okay, several speakers previously made mention about the engagement to learning. Okay, so basically, it could actually improve, no, the diverse learners in participating collaboratively in, like for example, having a games, okay, or differentiated activities or differentiated instruction. So therefore, of course, okay, we could actually engage our learners in using bilingual or bilingualism. So according to the research, rethinking literacy development of bilingual students with special needs, actually, no, another with special needs challenges, okay, struggles and growth by Aurelius 2010. Through this, it will develop the using of bilingual for students. They must be motivated or self-motivation and support received from the respective family. Okay, so another thing is, another benefit. Okay, one of the Waterloos, we as a teachers, okay, sometimes that we actually, okay, this is actually student, no, I forgot the letter D, okay. So one of the Waterloos that we experience, especially language teacher, no, among our learners is their ability to understand, ability to comprehend. So therefore, one good thing of improving the comprehension of our learners is by having or adopting bilingualism. Okay, so again, this is according to a research, bilingual education, the acquisition of language or English, and the retention by Christian 2009 stated that in teaching the student, it is more effective if we use bilingual approach. So again, my fellow educators and fellow speakers, okay, again, it's a study according to Christian, no? It is more effective actually if we use bilingualism, okay? So that they can totally grasp or understand the ideas that we wanted to impart to our respective learners, together with the research conveying the right kind of message. Okay, planning for first language and culture within the primary classroom. This is a research conducted by Deborah et al. Way back 2008, stated that teachers must highlight or emphasize things that is needed to be emphasized in using the first language of the students so that the appropriate or the right message will be conveyed properly. Okay, so we are done with the benefits of having or adopting bilingualism. Okay, so we have aside from the benefits, of course, we have this the disadvantages or and advantages of adopting or having bilingualism. So let us take a look at one by one and discuss it. Okay, so let's start with the pros or the advantages. Okay, the first one is cultural awareness. So basically, of course, when we adopted the second language or the English as a second language, and we adopt the bilingualism, okay, we tend to be aware with the culture of other people, okay? And then the second one makes it easier to learn a secondary language. That is true, okay? And then the third one is automatic adaptation on the new language. Okay, so basically, of course, we have this bilingualism. We actually automatically adopt the new language, which is, of course, English as our second language or the ESL. Another, this is actually again shared by another one of the speakers a while ago, better career opportunity. Of course, my dear educators, one of the parameters or one of the good things of knowing bilingualism is having a better career opportunities or a greener pasture. So basically, if you are equipped with a good language or with a language, of course, we could actually land with a better job or better opportunities. Another can be quite beneficial for your travels. Of course, when you travel abroad, and basically if you know on how to speak the language or the second language, you could be actually be able to easily adapt or be aware of their culture, of the particular place that you visited. And then, of course, you may be able to work abroad. Okay? And then, the next one is may improve our mental capacities. That is true. It improves our minds, our neurons, okay? And of course, in adapting or learning new things, okay? And then learning language can be fun, okay? Just like, again, by the one of the speakers a while ago, no? Shared several games that would actually engage our learners and let them enjoy. Okay, and then next, easier to participate in exchange program. Other countries, they have exchange program, no? What are these? Say, for example, okay, they could exchange students in order or have their scholarship program, no? And then the personal development. Okay, next, students may be more willing to learn new things. And then the next one is you may be able to work as a private language tutor. So some of us as a language teacher, of course, we could actually be a language tutor as well. Okay, so we are done with the pros. Let's proceed now to the cons. Okay, so this is actually a little more. Okay, maybe hard at the beginning. Basically, that is the dilemma, no? That may be hard at the beginning. And then less time for other important subject areas. Okay. Okay, in our case, in the public school, okay, others, we have a Filipino subject. Of course, this language is not used as a medium of instruction. Okay, so we have this less time for other important subject areas. Okay, students may have a problem. Okay, so how are we going to address that? So basically, we are duty bound as a language teacher in order to address this one. And okay, next, may increase the stress level, specifically among our learners. Okay. So another thing, not many schools offer this kind of bilingualism program. Okay. And then next, lack of qualified teachers. That is true. Okay, so basically, the government or the private school would actually tend to hire qualified teachers to teach another language. Okay, higher administrative. Okay, so basically, another thing is children may feel burned out. Okay, so that is the advantages. Okay, types of bilingualism. Let us take a look at this one. Number one, immersion program. Second, transition program, pull-out programs, and then maintenance program. Okay, let us take a look at one by one. Okay, so immersion program, only English is spoken for most subjects. Teachers' aides may assist with interpretation or provide access to resources in other native languages. So that is what we call the immersion program under the types of bilingualism. Okay, only English is spoken for most subjects. Okay, next, transition program, from the word transition, from the word transit. Okay, students receive reading lessons in their first language or the English as a second language. Instruction is provided. Progress in understanding English results in placement where English is spoken as the first language and students discontinue first language time. So actually there is what we call a problem when it comes to transition programs. So basically, in our case, in our case in the Philippines setting, okay, from grade 1 to grade 3, we the teacher taught the mother tongue, okay, our native language, which is Filipino. Okay, and then of course the regional languages or regional dialects that we have. We have the varieties of dialects here. No, we have Maranao, Tiboli, Kapampangan, Bicolano, Ilocano, etc., etc. So basically, under the transition from grade 4 to grade 6, in our case, of course, there is what we call a culture shock among the learners. Okay, and then the third one, pull-out programs. Students are separated from other students to receive low enrollment English language instruction or reading lessons in their first language. Sometimes it is called the sheltered English program. So in our case, in our country, we do not actually adopt this pull-out program. Okay, others or other country, perhaps they adopted or they adopt this pull-out program wherein they separated English language learners, okay, in order for them to actually foster mass. But then again, there is what we call disadvantage in here because we are posing discrimination among our learners. Okay, next, maintenance programs. Instruction in both English and the student's native language is provided. So actually, the fourth type is the best. Actually, when we teach and adopt bilingualism in the education, okay? So, okay, for the last, for the few slides, I just wanted to share a little bit with our background, being a Filipino. Of course, I'm a proud Filipino, Filipino teacher. Okay, bilingualism in the Philippines perspective, okay? Okay, so let me share a little bit of this one. Okay, the policy statement also emphasized that aspiration of the Filipino nation, okay, is to have its citizens possess skills in Filipino to enable them to perform their duties and responsibilities as Filipino citizens in English in order to meet the needs of the country in the community of nation. So basically, we all country, if I'm not mistaken, no, around, correct me if I'm wrong, no, basically all countries around the globe, they would actually impose, no, or actually integrate English as a second language, no, because again, English becoming the most powerful form of communication around the globe. Okay. Next, of course, is actually the benefit. Enhance learning through language to achieve quality education. So this is actually one of our dreams, not to provide quality education among our learners. And then second one, of course, as a Filipino, in our case, we propagate Filipino as a language of literacy. Okay. Develop Filipino as a linguistic symbol of national unity and identity. In our case, in our respective country, of course, we have our own culture and national identity. Fourth, cultivate and elaborate Filipino as a language of school discourse. Example, continue its intellectualization and maintain English as an international language for the Philippines as a non-exclusive language of science and okay, so again, this is actually an order or a law that was signed, okay, on May 17, 2003, Executive Order number 2010 entitled Establishing the Policy to Strengthen the Use of the English Language as a Medium of Instruction in the Educational System, was issued and signed by President, our former President, no, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. In pursuance to this order, the DepEd Memorandum number 181, 2003 was disseminated to the field. Okay. Okay, so the implementations of the bilingual education policy, the first one, of course, early childhood education or early childhood development. The two language, okay, we have here, the Filipino and English are used as the medium of instruction or media of instruction for the 5-year-old children in the preschool education. However, these children have already developed their first language at home, but they did not learn this language by formal instruction. They acquired it from their family members and adult interaction. This is the language that the children use for basic communication at the earliest ages, thus may be considered as the child thinking language. Second to the last, okay, children use Filipino as the medium of instruction in learning. Okay, this is actually the subject being offered in the basic education or secondary education or the junior high school. Okay, even in the elementary level. Okay, in our case, so okay, in conclusion, so with a canon language in education policy in place, learners all over the globe have better opportunities of becoming proficient in 2 languages. That is true. In their native language and language as the English second language. However, the use of the mother tongue should be strengthened in the early years of the education. Preschool, grade 1 and 2 and 3, so that the development of critical thinking abilities could be strengthened. People in the academe and other stakeholders in education are devising ways to use mother tongue to facilitate the learning of second language simultaneously. This approach could make the learners preserve their own cultural, again, let me take note of this one, to preserve their own cultural and national identity, as well as to promote multilingualism to communicate within the country and the rest of the world. With that,
excuse me, can I participate? Excuse me, Prof, can I participate with you?
Yes, madam.
Yes, okay, sir. My name is Naima Mahmoud from Iraq.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I want to tell you about early childhood education is a period when children start to learn basic skills, social and emotional skills, develop their interested and form a relationship between their parents and teachers. It is their foundation and a groundwork for their future development. That's about in Philippines. Early childhood care and education is more than preparation for primary school. It aims at their holistic development of child's social, emotional, cognitive, and physical needs. In order to build a solid and broad foundation for lifelong learning, and Ruben has the possibility to nurture caring, capable and responsible future citizens, says UNESCO about the importance of early childhood education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insights in your as regards with your. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
my pleasure to participate in this meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so this is actually the references that I use in the sharing of my discussion. So with that, thank you for listening, and for the Indonesian people, terima kasih untuk mendengarkan. Again, thank you so much. God bless us all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for Mr. Dariel David from Philippines. So from this presentation, we can conclude that bilingualism is that the ability to speak 2 languages, and then the benefit to people who can speak 2 languages is they can communicate to other people from overseas, and then or maybe can go abroad, and then and there's also have accounts from the people. There's also have accounts about the bilingualism is maybe may increase the stress level because it's hard at beginning, and then not many schools offer this kind of program because lack of qualified teachers. We also from this presentation we also know there are 4 types types to improve bilingual. First is immersion. First are immersion program, two transition program, three pull out programs, and four maintenance program. Like that. Thank you, Mr. Dariel.
My pleasure, Mom.
Okay. For the last, from the last presenter is Mrs. Rania Lampou. Please, Mrs. Rania.
Greetings from Greece. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So very, very excited, very honored to be here today in this wonderful discussion about bilingualism. And today I'm going to present multiple aspects of bilingualism, what are the benefits, what could be the effective strategies of implementation in secondary education. I will refer to the case study of bilingualism in Greece, and of course I will present some of my multi-award winning projects concerning combining teaching of English language teaching and STEM. So can I share now my presentation? Can you see now my presentation?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. So bilingualism is of a major importance nowadays. This issue has occupied educators, policymakers, researchers for a long time because they seek to develop innovative strategies and learning approaches. So researchers claim that language policies should take into account students' language rights that are connected to social cohesion, and is also necessary to rethink and evaluate traditional pedagogy. Language is considered as a significant social identity indicator for both individual and nation states. So researchers suggest that multilingual language approaches should be in line with the curricula, with pedagogies and teachers' experiences. Why? Because teaching in a language unknown to students, as well as difficult and different regarding mother language, could lead to students' discrimination and dropout. So bilingual education is seen as an important political issue at the same time, because bilingual education can create a community without strong social, political, racial, and economic inequalities. So the teaching of two languages allows a flexible transfer between languages that is essential for operational and effective learning. And also we talk about also a flexible use of languages. Bilingual education is implemented through a number of different models. So bilingualism occurs when a person is able to use two languages, not only the same modality, but also when mixing them. And bilingual education refers to planned and systematic use of two languages in the course of the student's education at school. The aim of this approach to teaching is for students to master the second language through their academic studies. So bilingual education enables students to develop comprehensive abilities in second language in terms of listening, speaking, reading, and writing to ensure complete fluency in the first language at the same time. And students will be able to use the second language to interact with others, to excel in their academic studies, to enhance their opportunities to study, live, and work in different places around the world. One case of a bilingual educational program, but already previous speakers have mentioned, is what we call a CLIL, Content Language Integrated Learning, which is actually an approach in which a foreign language is used as a tool in the learning of a non-language subject in which both language and the subject have a joint role. It's becoming very popular in Europe. And what are the benefits of bilingualism? Bilingual children can easily perceive and understand different cultures and people. They can familiarize themselves with different ways of thinking and understand more easily. They tend to perform better on multitask tests and have better attention. They have better brain functions, often better at reading, and they generally learn foreign languages more easily. They outperform monolinguals on general measures of executive function. It's a function in the brain. This has to do with attention. That means that they can pay focused attention without being distracted, and also they can improve the ability to switch from one task to another. They demonstrate head start on test of perspective taking, decision making, and what we call the theory of mind. Theory of mind is related to fundamental social, interpersonal, emotional skills. So we talk about an increased mental flexibility also, and this increased cognitive advantages. Because these children are able to develop communication skills, to develop a higher degree of literacy, to develop a keen awareness of how language works, to have a stronger foundation for learning additional languages in the school. They have, of course, long-term careers, academic growth, and they have proficiency in multiple languages, which is, of course, a great advantage if you want to have more opportunities for global exchange. So these bilingual programs, they have a great, huge impact on students' cultural and social growth. Incorporating cultural education in the classroom can help create enriching academic experiences for all students. Exploring multiple languages in the classroom provides a foundation for cultural education that allows students to learn and grow alongside classmates from different cultural backgrounds. And also students learn to become more adaptable and more aware of the world around them. So it's interesting here to see some myths about bilingualism. For instance, in Europe, monolingualism is considered to be, many years before, monolingualism was considered to be the normal and accepted state of affairs. On the other hand, bilingualism was associated in the mind of many people, and still today, with poverty, with immigration, with minorities, intermarriages, and so on. So consequently, there are several commonsensical ideas about bilingualism, which reside in the prejudices that are linked and biases that are linked to this concept. In fact, we talk about negative stereotypes about bilingualism that have also dominated scientific practices until the decade of the 60s. And although scientific evidence has ever since shown the multiple advantages of bilingual achievement, we talk about creative thinking, linguistic awareness, communicative sensitivity, still there are people who hold wrong ideas about bilingualism. The first myth about bilingualism is what we call the balance theory. According to this theory, first language and second language are separately stored in a limited space of the brain of bilingualists. That means that the more the one language develops, the more the balance tips to one side. In other words, first language and second language develop separately and to the detriment of one another.